Okay, I am back from the theater. Happy to be reporting to all of you fine folks for this, my not precaution. Sorry about that. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. That's why. For actually my AfterShock video. There we go. That's the ticket. So, I have my impressions that I am here to share with all of you, after all, this being my Aftershock reaction video. I am not typically one to champion style over substance. I have found there to be many a charlatan who does Del Toro. So I think that there does need to be substance to anything that anyone is tackling. It can't just be your individual style, for lack of a better word. Like, look, it's great to have a recognizable signature aesthetic or way of going about with your storytelling, with your effects, what have you. Hell, Clive Barker, H.P. Lovecraft, H.R. Giger. I mean, these were artists that had their own style. So, while it is important to have story, have meaningful characterization, a plot to string everything along, I, generally speaking, am not one to favor style over substance. However, one thing that I have to get off my chest and off rip mention about Return to Silent Hill. Director Christophe Gans, in terms of his particular style, what he brings to the table, he has not lost a step since the first film, since Silent Hill from 2006. And that I tip my hat to him because it's very impressive. In fact, he has leveled up in terms of what it is that he does so very well. Which brings me to the best summary that I can give over my impression of this film. Its greatest strength is also its worst weakness: enhancement. Now, notice I said enhancement and not improvement. That's because I feel like everything that Christophe Gans did well, or not just did well, but what he excels at from the first film has been augmented, has been improved in this one. Unfortunately, the sticking points that drag down the first Silent Hill also, unfortunately, rear their ugly head this time around. So, once again, for the benefit of the normies and those that haven't that are not familiar with this franchise, with the games, with even the first film, allow me to summarize the plot that we have here. So the receipt of a letter from James Sunderland's deceased girlfriend sees him return to the site of her hometown. The resort town of Silent Hill has turned ghost town and has plenty of skeletons in the closet and provides a better outlet for James to face his inner demons than even his sponsor. Down the rabbit hole he goes, remembering the days of his lady love, only to wake to the living nightmare of her loss and his current turmoil within the town. So one thing that does help the story and help you understand the loss that James is going through, as well as the connection that he had with his ex, with his former girlfriend, the flashbacks help a lot, and I like that they're very much appreciated. They were well handled. His memories are triggered in an elegant way instead of like sporadic and ham-fisted. That can often detract from a story, from flashbacks in general, where it just seems like this it can feel lazily done, but that's not the case here. In fact, like I said, the way that the director handles them is very artistic. The visual upgrade to the practical effects of the monsters was readily noticed and greatly appreciated. This was what I mentioned in my, I believe in my precaution preview video, but also in my watch party of the first Silent Hill when I was describing its sequel. I know for a fact I mentioned it in my live stream reaction video to the behind the scenes of Return to Silent Hill. But I mean, everything and everyone, all of the monsters get a visual enhancement in terms of the practical effects. The lying figure, the creeper bugs, the nurses, red pyramid thing. I tip my hat to Christophe Gans for that, because hey, there was no reason why he couldn't just copy the same look of these creatures from the first film. And eagle-eyed fans of the first movie will notice the differences in the monsters depicted here, which all of them except for one, if I'm not mistaken, are the same from the first Silent Hill movie. Eagle-eyed fans will readily notice what those differences are, and again, I very much am appreciative of that. The lying figure for me is probably my favorite to receive this upgrade in appearance. The arms appear like pinned back and melded into the skin. Considering its white bulbous head and chicken-like appearance with the arms pinned back like folded chicken wings, I do wonder if skinless poultry served as an inspiration. Now, I didn't make a definitive list of all the different kinds of monsters from Silent Hill 2, whether the original or if they're to check if there were any new monsters added to the remake. But my hope would have been that there would have been more, like one or two other monsters that were original, just so that the director or the effects design, the practical effects designer would have interpreted James's trauma in their own way and concocted a monster for that was original for the film. The pacing in this movie is solid, never a dull moment, and it moves along at a smooth pace. The film is well acted. I myself, I didn't mention this, but I was concerned that the actors were a little too unknown. It's one thing if, for instance, in the first Silent Hill movie, you get well-known actors playing minor roles, like Sean Bean, or you get recognizable leading ladies from other films like Rhea Mitchell. I mean, I was worried that I don't want to say my concern was that we were looking at actors from, college theater plays or anything like that, but, like community community actors or something like that. But the guy that they picked to play James Sunderland, he did look a little. He looked like I don't want to say a low-rent version of Cyclops, but he looked like an actor that looked like Cyclops but didn't quite fit that role. So, but the acting is well done. I applaud especially the lady love of our protagonist. A lot of, heartfelt scenes and very well acted, I felt. So one of the final monsters inclusions, I'm sorry to say, felt out of place. I do know that it is a creature, it is a monster in the Silent Hill 2 game, but I don't know, it just felt forced, and that kind of leads me to one of my next points. Had we cut out one holdover ingredient that I don't want to spoil because I didn't know this would be a factor going in. If we cut out one holdover ingredient from the previous film and the games, we could have spent more time on characterization and of the couple, and thus alluding to the origin of the monsters. I do think that that is a weakness in. I know it was a weakness in the first movie, although one of the threats, one of the monsters, is kind of shown as like a horrifying version of himself once the town goes to hell. But I wish that would have come across more, that they would have alluded more. They kind of did that in one heavy-handed way, but there are very simple ways of showing how each of these monsters is part of the twisted psyche of James Sunderland. How, this isn't spoiling anything because I would think that by now, at the very least, people know what the connotation of the nurses are. Just showing someone attending his wife, his girlfriend, and James, his wandering eye notices the chest area of one of the nurses tending to his girlfriend. That would have been a simple enough illusion to draw for the audience. And of course, you don't want to. The key is subtlety. You don't want that to be so heavy-handed, but I do think that it was a missed opportunity here. So, unfortunately, like plot-wise, the movie could have used more meat on the bone, pun intended. I did feel disappointed slightly, especially so recently having seen the first film. I felt like the first Silent Hill had much more cohesion with the plot, and again, the pacing was good in this movie. It's not like an hour and 20 minute film that cuts things short. I just wish that we had, and I understand fully if this is much more of a character driven story, which I'll get to in a moment, but plot wise I just could have used more story. And I felt like the first film had more of that. And if you're going to go the character development route, you really need to be able to, again, give more for your characters to do it, especially if you're going to have a very limited amount of cast members. I always stress this. If you're going to have a very limited cast, you got to be able to get the most out of them, especially with the time that you're given. So even though this film was well acted, I just felt like there could have been more for our characters to do for us to empathize with them and just to build them out better, and especially building out James's psyche. The ending didn't quite hit. On the one hand, I don't know if the director wanted to tell a different ending, but if so, why the monsters? And again, I don't want to spoil anything. I can understand why that's vague, but that just leaves me wondering if you didn't want to go down that route that the video game does. Why would there be monsters then? I guess the guilt that he's dealing with, that he's not aware of why he's feeling guilt, but I do believe that the ending just didn't hit as hard as it could have, like the shock of it. So it was a faithful adaptation, but a flawed sequel. And it's unfortunate that the plot and characterization didn't live up to the high bar of the visual storytelling, especially when, in all honesty, the director did have 20 years since the first film to address these flaws persistent in the first film. I would still recommend this movie. I enjoyed it. It's just like towards the end, it kind of peters out. I don't want to say it loses steam, but it doesn't quite keep the momentum. And it would have been helped greatly by stronger plot for our protagonist to be involved in. But I would still recommend this movie. It's just had Christophe Gans like sewn up a lot of these flaws in his own directing and writing. Not directing, the writing. Had he sewn up some of these flaws? I mean, you got to understand that because Silent Hill 2 holds so very much regard in the gaming world, it really needs to be able to deliver in the cinematic version. And my worry is that many people will feel like it didn't, and it will be treated as a disappointment for that. I was slightly disappointed, but it's not a disappointing movie. I always gauge whether or not I like and would recommend the movie if I whether as far as whether or not I'd include it in my vast Blu-ray library, and I absolutely will for this one. So, not as strong as I would have hoped. I mean, I something like this, something like Nosferatu of last year, it comes with a lot of expectation, and that's just that's the name of the game. That's the nature of the beast, and you have to be able to, going in, you have to be able to understand that and deliver. Most importantly, deliver. And I don't feel like either did. Either Nosferatu lived up to its legacy, or this film delivered what it really, really should have in order to be a horror classic. And I think that's what I want most for Silent Hill. Of course, for the series to continue in gaming format and have not have its best days behind it. I want a sequel that actually delivers, I'm not gonna say I feel the phrase is overdone, recapture the magic, but I want for the greatness that is Silent Hill to finally be transferred in all its glory to cinema, like hit on all cylinders like it can. And I can say that as far as the visuals are concerned, and just how to move a camera, the creatures, the monsters, Christophe Gans knows what he's doing. He really needs someone to tighten up his scripts for him. So, I don't want to say a lukewarm recommendation, because I try not to give those, because who wants to hear that? Like, what would that even look like? Like, yeah, watch it, I guess, but I would still recommend this, but it doesn't hit the way that I had hoped that it would. So now, as previously mentioned in my precaution preview video, I would like to get to what's on the scene for the Mind's Eye Inquisition and the Greater Mind's Eye. Okay, so I have had quite a busy week now with a couple of different live streams that I've done. So last Thursday, a week ago, I did another preview and reaction video, my 28 years later Bone Temple, Precaution, and my Aftershock. So I recommend that you take a gander at those. I also did not to shift too far from zombies, I also did a Resident Evil 9 showcase Overcast on Sunday. They were going over details for the upcoming sequel and anniversary, which will be next month. So be sure to check out my Overcast for Resident Evil Requiem. This past Monday, I did a Silent Hill 20-year anniversary watch party. I highly recommend that. Be sure to take a gander at that video. And use you can boot up the movie on wherever you can find it, because I couldn't find it on streaming, but you can boot up the movie and use my watch party as a second screen experience. I have the timestamps listed in the lower right-hand corner. This past Tuesday, I did a Return to Silent Hill behind the scenes. They were discussing the adaptation of Silent Hill 2, as well as Christophe Gans speaking on his visual eye for the monsters. And earlier today, I did my Return to Silent Hill precaution. So now let's take a look at coming attractions. So there have been two videos that have dropped recently, both trailers, that I'm going to be doing gut reactions to. The first was Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and the second is Gale, Yellow Brick Road. I'm excited for both of those. I think my hope is that both of those will deliver, especially Lee Cronin's The Mummy. And one thing that I can say, and I've repeated this before, one thing that we do have to look forward to in 2026, and man, I cannot remember the last time I've been able to say this. You have so many movies coming out this year that aren't just sequels in popular genres or popular franchises or game adaptations. For instance, we still have the Resident Evil movie adaptation coming in September. It's the fact that the talent behind almost every one of them is impressive, and they've been able to deliver some kind of contribution, some kind of style. And again, I try not to overemphasize style over substance, because there are far too many people that try to get away with that and believe that that's a substitute. Look no further than Del Toro's Frankenstein that was on Netflix. The actor got an Academy Award nomination for. Give me a break. So I try not to overemphasize style over substance. It is good to have your own signature trademark. However, many of these directors are bringing some name brand recognition to these projects. For instance, Lee Cronin is off his own Evil Dead sequel, Evil Dead Rise, which I very much like. That was my top movie of 2023, horror movie of 2023. We have, oh God, what's his name? The director of Weapons. He's going to be handling the Resident Evil movie. In terms of, what else is on the horizon? God, I'm blanking at the moment. Oh, the werewolf movie in December by Robert Eggers. So all of these directors have, it isn't just that we're getting a Mummy movie, a Resident Evil, a Evil Dead sequel, but almost all of the movies that I'm looking forward to have people who have staked their claim recently. So they're coming off of recent successes, and that spells momentum. So I'm very much looking forward to these, but for the sake of this video, I am going to be working on a trailer gut reaction to Lee Cronin's The Mummy and Gale, Yellow Brick Road trailers. So you be on the lookout for that. And this has been my impression, my aftershock for the Return to Silent Hill. I do hope that people watch it. I do hope that people support it. I hope that it gets the support that it needs, just because it is deserving of it, I believe. And I would really hate for this to stall the momentum that Silent Hill has had, coming off of the Silent Hill 2 remake, coming off of Silent Hill F, and with the upcoming Silent Hill original, Silent Hill 1 remake. So those have been my thoughts. I have been Incarnate, reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.